What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Dumo Show, where we talk all things motivation, education, and of course, entertainment. Welcome to the month of September, which is Story September. And of course, this month we will have a special guest with us in studio. He is one of the writers of the Dumo Show's blog over on our website, and he has requested, of course, to remain anonymous because he prefers to pen things down than to vocalize them. But welcome to the show. So glad to have you today. If you don't mind, please just let us know of some of the things that we will, of course, be running through in the month of September. Over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. X. This month we will be looking at different types of aspects of storytelling, which will include, of course, the two different story structures that you could choose from when you're writing your story, as well as the different types of endings that you could have to your story. Yeah.
Thank you. Just tell us a little bit about the story structures. You said we'll be looking into two different types of story structures.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you have for us?
Yes. When it comes to story structure, two of the most popular ones is the three act story structure,
Yeah.
which is what you probably would be taught mostly in school,
Mm.
um, as well as the save the cat. Now this is something that a lot of people are probably not familiar with, but let's just talk about the three act structure for now. So with the three act structure, you have your story essentially broken up into three parts, or rather four. Um, so it's broken up into Act One, Act Two A, Act Two B, and Act Three. So that's why it's called three act structure, because it's Act One, Two, and Three. But your Act Two, it's broken up into two aspects. So your two A, yeah, and your two B.
Mm. Yeah, okay. So what exactly happens in these three acts?
So the general rule is that Act One is about 25%, Act Two is about 50% of the story, and Act Three is about the remaining 25% of the novel or the film or whatever it is that you're writing. So essentially, what happens is in Act One, it's the inciting incident. So your character, they find out about something that they have to do. It's where the journey that they have to take begins. And then we get to Act Two. So Act Two is where you get your rising action. Your character then starts to work towards whatever goal they set out for themselves. So the journey to the goal, and then Act Three is your climax.
Okay, so can you just explain to us what the inciting incident, the rise in action, and what exactly the climax is? Explain as though we're 5 years old.
Yes, of course. Okay, so at the beginning of your story, what happens is your character, your protagonist, they're in their comfort zone, so they're comfortable with the way that they're living and the things that they're doing, and then there's something, the inciting incident happens. So basically, the inciting incident is something that comes along and challenges the comfort of your character, and it's basically to throw your character outside of their comfort zone so that they work towards a goal that they hadn't actually expected or set out for themselves to reach. Now, because this is something that they hadn't intended on pursuing or intending on doing, most of the time at the beginning they will be a little reluctant. So there'll be a debate, and then there'll be a point where they actually decide to jump into the fray. So this then will later move them into the rising action. So Act Two, and basically this is where the story builds up, and your character starts to move from more of a passive and watchful role, and moves into more of an active an active protagonist role, and they actually start to have a bit of control over the situation, which then leads them into the climax where obviously this is now protagonist and antagonist having a confrontation, and the final conflict happens. And this usually happens externally, but from time to time there are those stories where you can see the internal conflict of the protagonist in the climatic moments. And that's basically the three act story structure. So I previously mentioned that I'll be speaking about the Save the Cat beat sheets. But there's also another popular one. So it's these three. There's the three act story structure. There's Dan Harmon's story circle, and then there's the Save the Cat beat sheet. Right. So with Dan Harmon's story circle, I just want to run through that one quickly. So it's basically an 8 point uh, 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 um way of telling a story, where you have your character in their comfort zone, um, and then number two, they realize that they want something. They get to number three, where they have to enter into a situation that they're not really used to, and then number four, they have to adapt to the situation. So they have to find a way to create a change that's going to allow them to to be in that situation and handle whatever situation that is. And then number five, this is roughly where your midpoint is in the three act story structure. So number five is where they get what they want. But now what happens is at number six, they have to pay for whatever it is that they wanted. So now that they achieve their goal, they now have a price that they have to pay for that. Then you get number seven, where they return to their familiar situation, so their comfort zone. But then number eight, they return to that situation having changed. So because of the story that they went through, because of the situations that they went through throughout the story, they have changed from the type of person that they started as. So then you have the Save the Cat beat sheet, which basically follows 15 steps. This one was basically created for screenwriters and obviously screenplays. So it basically follows these 15 steps in this order. There's the opening image, then the theme is stated, there's the setup of the story, so the hero getting introduced into the world. Then there's the catalyst, which is basically inciting incident. Um, and of course, like we mentioned previously, usually when the inciting incident comes along, the protagonist doesn't want to do whatever it is that the incident is forcing them to do. So you get the debate, which is the number 5 out of 15. And then after the debate, you break into two. So this is the point where your protagonist decides that they're gonna go into the situation. So in Dan Harmon's story circle, this is the point, number 4, where you adapt. um or rather it's number three, where you enter an unfamiliar situation. Right. So then you get number seven, which is the B story. This is so there's something called A story and B story when it comes to storytelling. This is something that we might get into more in another episode. Um, but basically the B story is kind of like a subplot. Um, so yeah, following the B story, you have number eight, which is the fun and game section, which is basically most of the journey, followed by number nine, the midpoint, which obviously is now just about halfway through your story. This is where the stakes are raised, um, and also where your protagonist gets what they want or does not. After that, you get the bad guys closing in, all is lost, and then you have the Dark Night of the Soul, um, which is basically where the protagonist is faced with a defeat. Um, so the hero must recon with the loss that they got. Um, and then number 13, break into three, and finally the finale, which is the climax. And then after the finale is of course the final image. So the final image, it gets contrasted with the opening image, um, which obviously is our number one. Um, so basically, the final image is kind of like the, the resolution after the climax. So the closing of your story, and that's basically the save the cat beat sheet. Yeah.
Yo, that was a lot of information. I'm not gonna lie, it was it was a lot of information all at once. Um, Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, for myself, I'm a storyteller myself, so I knew a lot of the things that you were referring to. I knew the things that you were talking about but for obviously everyone else who was listening, um, this might be a lot of new information. So we definitely hope that it helps, especially for those who are aspiring writers or even those who are writers right now. But you might be getting some things that you want to learn along the way. You know, as they say, we learn something new every day. Maybe you learned two new things, three new things today. Whatever it is, we're glad that you learned and picked up a few things.
Yes, it was a lot, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And with that being said, I would like to say thank you as well to all those who were concerned after the final episode of August. I can confirm that I did not get any warnings. Very, very fortunately. It, it seems the unscripted episode seemed to have struck a lot of good chords with the team over in the studio, and we are planning on doing a couple of more unscripted episodes every now and again, not always, just every now and again. But with that being said, thank you so much for listening, everybody. I am your host, Dumo X, and this is, of course, the Dumo Show, where we talk all things motivation, education, and, of course, entertainment. Thank you so much for listening. Stay blessed and stay safe. Salute.